Hey, everybody. We are live with Kimberley Seldon. We will give some time for people to join, and I will properly introduce you. So we can kind of chit chat for a minute while we let some people hop on. So tell me where you're located.
Well, that's always an interesting question. Today I'm in Toronto, and I split my time. I'm half the year I'm in Los Angeles and Santa Monica, and half the year I'm in Toronto. I married a Canadian, so we tug of war about where we live, and actually to just make sure our fate was sealed, we have a daughter who lives in LA and a son who lives in Toronto. So we're like,
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
always on a plane. Is
Oh
basically,
yeah, that's a lot of flying. But those are like very different places. So you're like well spread out in terms of like weather, climate.
Yeah, you can imagine that we try to spend more of our time January to June in Los Angeles and then enjoy the summer in Toronto. But they're similar in the sense, well, there's a lot of similarity too. It's, they both have kind of an urban environment kind of thing. So that's good.
Love it. You've got the urban inspiration. So I see that we've got people joining now. Welcome, everybody. My name is Dayana, working here from Design Files. And today I'm joined by Kimberley Seldon, who is an interior designer and the founder of Business of Design. And today we're going to chat all about advanced project management strategy. And we will have questions and Q&A later on. But for now, let's welcome Kimberley. Kimberley, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. I was looking forward to it, actually. I've missed everybody. COVID kept us so isolated, but this is great.
That's right. So I'm going to dive right in because I feel like, we hear the words project management, hear the words project or strategy, but pulling those together, project management strategy, what would you say that is? What is project management strategy?
Project management strategy is how you survive. And I fought it for so long. I really had the mindset that I'm creative. I'm a creative person, so I can't create systems and protocols to follow because every client is different and every project is different and every budget is different and every look is different. So I wasted so much time with that as my mantra. I failed to see how implementing very specific, even I'm going to even say rigid systems would not only get my projects delivered on time and on budget, it would make my clients way happier. And at the end of the day, I found out it made me so much happier. And the crazy bonus is I was then able to be more creative because I had real time that I could devote to creativity that wasn't being devoted to doing the same tasks over and over again and reinventing the wheel, I guess I would say. So if you're like I was and you think, oh, I don't want to be a corporation, I want to be a boutique creative firm, I would say that still systems, boundaries, protocols, and strategies will actually allow you to be that, but better.
Love it. It really frees up your creativity.
Oh, I was trapped in the endless, parade of menial tasks and, all the things. When I went to design school, I thought, well, I'm just going to be shopping with other people's money. It turns out it's 80% business and 20% creative. But I couldn't even give 20% creative attention because I was so busy doing all the business stuff that I didn't have protocols for. So,
Yeah. That leads me to my next question, which I know that with Business of Design and your coaching practice, you've helped a lot of, other interior designers kind of overhaul their processes. But I'm curious for your own design business, what are some of the big project management changes that you made? Maybe a couple that you made at different stages. And how did they impact your business and what issues did those updates resolve?
It's such a huge question. I have to say, first of all, every change I made, even if it made life 1% easier, paid huge dividends. And I hadn't anticipated that. The other thing I hadn't anticipated is that every little change we made, I made a change to how we did worksheets and therefore how we did purchase orders and therefore how we did billing to the client. Small little things, but add those little 1% improvements up, and suddenly the whole office is working better, happier, more streamlined, more efficiently. I will say a couple things that kind of were mind-blowing game changers. I created a contract that I give to all my trades. And when the trades will sign it before working with us, they only have to sign it once, and we keep it on file for, for as long as we work with those trades. And I've had some of my trades now since 1991, although we didn't have these documents until around 2005. So they signed this contract, and it tells everybody what our expectations are. And so I'll give you an example. When we send you a quote request, we expect that quote to come back to us within 72 hours. And that's not possible if it's a contractor, but it is possible if it's a painter, drapery person, tiler, because we found we were spending a huge amount of our time chasing trades to give us a price. And particularly in a market like this where everybody's super busy, that would be a nightmare. So we literally trained our trades how to behave with us, and putting it all in writing was a huge difference. And then the bonus is when we start on a job site, we blow up the contract that is between us and the trades, and it hangs at the job site so the client can see it there. And so the client knows, okay, no one's parking in my driveway. No one's supposed to, there's no loud music. There's no, crazy behavior. If there is an issue, call Kimberley Seldon Design Group. Do not talk to the plumber about it. Do not talk to the electrician about it. So that was one thing that was like a huge game changer for us.
Yeah, and that like improves the client experience so much. I'm curious how you were able to get the trades people to kind of like follow that contract. Is it because you were sending them good work and they were like, okay, we want to do what she says? Or did you just find people that, were really with it and were like, sure, like we can handle that, no problem?
It's really insightful that you asked that. It wasn't easy. So initially what I did is I took my favorite trades out to lunch. It sounds crazy, but you're your contractor for lunch. They don't want to go for lunch. They're busy doing other things, but whatever. I forced them to go for lunch with me. And then I asked them, how could we be better to work with? What could we do that would make your life easier? And I was shocked because what I expected them to say is, you guys are great. We love working with you. But what they said instead is, oh, your paperwork's a nightmare. You never give us the information we need on time. We're constantly chasing you for this and chasing you for that. And so the whole lunch became like, oh my God, I had no idea. So what we did first is we changed our systems around how we work with the trade. And then I sat with the trades and I said, I have this idea. I want this contract. And the reason I want this contract is because it's going to keep us in line in terms of giving you the deliverables you need. And it's going to keep you in line in terms of working smoothly with us. And they were fine with that. The one part of the contract that was a little bit more difficult to figure out is how we get paid and who hires who and what is the percentage that we're going to be able to make on the project, et cetera, et cetera. But we figured that out. We had a system for that too. I literally got sign off from my trades. And in fact, my first Business of Design book, I think one of my contractors, I mentioned him by name because he's the guy I wanted his approval on this contract. If he could sign it, I knew every trade would sign it. And today, on those rare occasions when we need a new trade because somebody's retired or quit or moved away or whatever, or somebody was an A team member, but now they're a B team member and we're going to replace them, they sign the contract really fast because it's very clear and they understand and I can explain how we're going to get paid and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, that's amazing. That's got to, it saves you so much time. It makes the process better for the client. Yeah.
Take your trades out for lunch. I'll just share one other thing. I have this guy who makes our draperies. He's amazing. I took him out for lunch and I was fully expecting for him to say, like, we're your best client. You're my best client. I love working with you guys. Yeah. Same thing. He said, you're a nightmare. All your paperwork is crazy. Yeah. We get 100 bolts of fabric and we don't know if it's inside out or upside down. So I said, well, is there anybody who does a better job than us? And he's like, yes. There's this designer in Toronto. Her name is Dee Chenier. And I said, well, why is she so good? Well, her paperwork is so clear. She has all these systems for how she gets it to us. I said, can I see her paperwork? And he goes, yeah. So he literally handed me her stuff. And
Yeah.
we totally changed how we do it. So we do mostly what she did with some improvements. And today it's like, I don't even think about bolts of fabric. They come, they go, there's a process. I don't, magically it all happens without me getting involved.
Yeah, I love that concept of kind of getting to spy on how somebody else is doing it.
Yeah.
Have you found any other ways to do that? Like to find out what another like pro designer is doing in
Ask your
terms of
trades and
process? Yeah.
ask your trades. I would say ask your trades. Don't ask another designer because how am I going to say this? I've been a designer since 1991. I would say 90% of designers are running their businesses somewhat poorly. Gosh, I feel like I'm being mean. I don't mean to be mean. That no one ran a business worse than I did. So I will just say that for 10 years, I sucked. It was horrible. Nobody was worse than me. But I have found that when I go to other designers, if you're just judging what's happening on the outside, they look beautiful. You're hearing about everything that's going great on projects. You don't actually know what's going on behind the scenes and how many of their clients love them versus are just tolerating them. So I would say it's better conversation for your trades who can actually give you the inside scoop.
Yeah.
Or I would say, for example, in the business of design community, we're all about complete transparency. So when we put groups together, people share honestly, here's what's going on the job sites. Here's where I got in trouble. Here's where I got fired from a job.
Ooh.
And then we say, okay, you need to be doing these following things, and then that won't ever happen to you again.
Love it. Got to get specific. You got to get the
Yeah.
specific stories. So, what are some of the most common challenges and issues that you have noticed that interior designers face when it comes to project management?
Oh my gosh, how many hours do we have?
I know, right?
I would like to put it back out to the audience. By the way, you can see my ring light, you guys. I am vain. I'm in a completely black room and it sucks the life out of you. So I do have a ring light. I want to put it back on you guys and I want to ask you some questions. And maybe if you got a pen and a paper, you can just text yourself the answers. I'm really curious. So one of the things that really helped me is asking myself the following question. When you first meet your interior design clients, you're at the consultation, is there a question the clients always ask you that you dread? For me, 100%. There were a couple of questions that I absolutely dreaded. That's very important information. So if you could just jot that down. What do you hate clients to ask you? And then the second thing, if you can just kind of off the top of your head, what are the 3 most annoying aspects of managing the clients and the 3 most annoying aspects of managing the trades? Because you have to manage both of those things. I would also, depending on who I'm talking to, if I'm talking to groups that have, 2, 3, 4, 5 employees, I would add to that, what are the most annoying things about managing your employees or your independent contractors? And then I would say, what do you fear? And this is hard because I'm asking you to be vulnerable. What do you fear that your clients say about you when you're not around? Right? What do the clients kind of mutter to the trades when they're there and you're not there? And that getting to the bottom of that is really important. I wanted my clients to say nice things about me. I'm okay if they say I'm super expensive. I just want them to say I'm also really good at what I do. That's okay. So can we, I don't know how this works, Dayana. Will they take a few minutes to write that in the chat?
You guys can take a few minutes to write those down. You guys can also, open up a Google Doc and copy and paste those questions. So I popped all of them in the chat. And so that way you guys have, a way to kind of brainstorm where should you begin? Because obviously project management is like a humongous topic to talk about and to approach in your own business. So take a moment to copy those questions down, brainstorm some things while we're chatting. That way, you kind of have an idea of where should you begin in kind of fixing your own process. That said, I'm still curious if you have like a top 3 most common challenges, right? Like if you've seen kind of what are like the top most popular ones that you have heard designers ask or say, I'm really struggling here,
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. We launched Business of Design in 2004, and we've talked to thousands of designers. We have members in 50 countries around the world. And I can tell you that the top three are pretty easy for me to come up with. Number one, there's money problem.
Mhm.
Very often, design professionals are working full time or more than full time hours and taking home paltry sums of money. And we're really good at lying to ourselves. There's a high number of us who are people pleasers, and we desperately want to make the client happy. And so we think that by over giving and over delivering and overdoing all the time, that in some way is going to make the client happy. But I've learned that clients are happy if I can do two things, which I'll tell you about in a second. So money is a huge thing. Am I charging enough money? If I have staff or independent contractors or even a bookkeeper, am I billing for the time they are spending on client projects?
Mhm.
And the question I ask myself is, if I wasn't on this job, if the clients hadn't hired my team, would they have to do this task? And if
Mhm.
the answer is yes, they would have to do this task, then it is 100% a billable task. And
Yeah.
I have a
I
habit
love
of following myself down rabbit holes, but
that. Mhm.
that's the thing right there. Designers are terrible about logging the hours. And one of the things that we learned and a system that we have is around logging those hours. The way I write the entry in my log sheets matters a lot. And once I figured out how to write those entries clearly, concisely, and so they sound actionable, my clients stopped complaining about paying my fees. We meet a ton of designers who say, well, I do flat fees, so I don't have to log my hours. And I will say, show me your profit and loss statement. I know you're broke. And if you're not broke, you're damn close. And if you're not damn close, man, you could be taking home 4 times as much money if you would just pay attention. So there's really no shortcut.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Money is it's a huge umbrella. So how you're charging, how you're billing the clients, how you're collecting, how you're logging your hours, all of those problems have to be solved. But the good news is they can 100% be solved. Create a system, it becomes automated. You don't have to think about it again.
Mhm. I love how you brought up charging because that does affect your project management process because it affects, how you're logging hours, or how you're kind of presenting the time spent, how you're tackling the project. So I think that's really important to mention that it kind of starts there. So are you
Yeah.
saying that you just charge hourly pretty much? That way you make sure you're always covered?
We do hourly fees and flat fees,
Mhm.
both, but I still always make sure I'm covered. And
Yeah.
I have to have the discipline to log the amount of time I'm spending on a project. Otherwise, I'm giving away the only valuable resource I have, which is time. My most valuable resource isn't my talent as an interior designer. Go to Restoration Hardware, they have beautiful rooms with beautiful furniture, right? My most valuable resource is my time. And
Mhm.
I used to think when I started, oh, clients are hiring me because I make beautiful rooms. And now I know, no, not so much. I mean, I
Mhm.
do. I
Mhm.
think I do, but they're actually hiring me because this is super complicated, complex, exhausting full time work. And they don't have time to do it. So I'm going to do it for you. And I'm going to assume a lot of risk and liability in order to do that for you. Therefore, I must be paid. I must create a sustainable business for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a reminder to our Design Files members that we have a time tracker. So you can track your time for each project and make sure to list exactly specifically what was done during that time, which is great for reviewing, if you are charging flat rate that you can make sure, that it actually equals, a good a good amount based on your minimum hourly rate that you need to be making. So I know that Business of Design offers like a 15-point project management strategy template. So you don't have to list all 15 of those points items, but I'm curious what some of the top ones or, most important ones are that make up the overall strategy.
It's funny because we do talk about the BOD 15 or the Business of Design 15-step project management strategy a lot, but I just think of that as how I run projects. In fact, I just wrote your name on here, but other than that, here's the list right here. It's the first page of my contract.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a roadmap to create systems and boundaries and protocols for my business. It just didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
What I had was a tremendous amount of publicity because I've had a few of my own TV shows in Canada. So I had a huge number of, I still do a show called Cityline every month. My phone rings all the time with clients. So that wasn't my problem. But telling the clients what it's going to, how long it will take and how much it's going to cost, that was my problem.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hired this business coach, we started working toward creating a system that would allow the project to start and 100% guarantee the project finished. Because too often what I found is I was getting about 75% of the way through the project, and then the client would run out of gas. They'd be like, we're just going to do the rest of it later. Don't you worry, we'll finish it ourselves. And then the result is I never got repeat business. I never got referral customers. I never got beautiful photos for my website. Yeah. So one thing I learned the hard way through experience is how the project starts is how the project ends. And that means the most important thing I can do is get a process for intake of the client, for the consultation, and for launching the project. If I can do that, I'm half the way there. And then the second most important thing is what we call phase 2. And that's where we will do our trade day and we will do all the design and we will price everything and we will do a presentation. If I can get those two phases solid and accurate, I will never not be able to finish a job. So pre-2000, kind of 1991 to 2000, I probably had something like 75 projects because remember I had this TV show. I had 13 full-time designers. We had teams working. So 1991 to 2000, I never once completely finished the job in a way that made everybody happy. And that's kind of shameful and embarrassing, but that's how bad it was. I desperately wanted to. I just didn't know how to. After that, when we started creating the 15-step process, every step that got introduced made it better, better, better. And it took us about 6-7 years. And one day I looked up and I'm like, oh my God, we are a well-oiled machine. We are a well-oiled money-making machine, like like real serious money. And I knew that my life was totally transformed the first year my husband and I sat with the accountants, and the accountant said, your wife made more money than you this year. My husband's like, what? And so now we kind of have like some years I make more, some years he makes more, but I make a lot, and I didn't even think it was possible. And I didn't even think that was important to me. I just kind of thought my husband has a good salary. So, whatever, I'll do this. It's kind of fun, but it feels good. And that gets back to the point we're talking about with all the money stuff. Not only is it, sad that you're not making money, but it'll rot your self-esteem. It rot my self-esteem. I felt embarrassed and ashamed and had a real sad lack of confidence, which, today I have confidence because I rely on a process to run my projects. I'm talking so fast because there's
I love that. There's so many good things in there. There's a couple things that I'm curious about. When you say like clients were running out of gas, is that like they were running out of money or they were running out of like patience?
Both, right? Because back in the day, I would go we'd have a meeting. I'd show them the floor plans and they go, yeah, these are great. And then 3 weeks later, I'd show them some draperies and some fabrics and some furniture. Oh my God, this is amazing. And then 3 weeks later, I'd be asking them about something to do with this. And then another 3 weeks, and like weeks and months are going by. It's like, when is it going to end? Oh, now I need money for this. Now I need money for that. Now I need money for this. And they just got exhausted. But they're not mean. Like most clients are nice. They didn't say, get out of my house, you're such a loser. They said, oh, Kimberly, we love everything you've done. And now we're just going to finish it ourselves. That's how you get fired, right? That's a nice way to get fired. I didn't know that was getting fired, but it was. And I had a lot of shame. I would go to events with other designers and I would say, how are you doing? How's work? And they'd go, amazing. Oh my God, my clients love me. And I'm thinking, I'm such a loser. I have, 5 clients who are mad at me and 2 who won't pay their bills and 3 who are going to finish it themselves. It was so depressing. It's so
Yeah, sometimes experience and, really knowing what you're doing doesn't always come the easy, fun way.
no,
Yeah.
that's
So
true.
so to resolve that, it's like it's really about you knowing the process and you being able to communicate that like really upfront to the clients. Does that have to do with kind of like getting the budget a little bit clearer too, and like really being able to estimate exactly what they're investing and exactly when things are going down? Is that kind of how you resolve that?
Yeah, well, you touched on one of the things I was getting at with the first question is when you first meet clients at the consultation, what are the questions you hate? Well, I can tell you the questions I hated. How much is it going to cost? And when is it going to be done? Because I don't know. But did I say, I don't know? No, I opened my big mouth and I gave some stupid number that wasn't accurate and some stupid timeline that wasn't accurate. And then I spent the rest of the project explaining why I wasn't meeting the stupid guess that I made at the beginning, right?
Right.
So I had to create a system where I could answer those two questions with authority and assurance. And that's not easy to do. That's why it took us 6 or 7 years. But today I have answers to those questions and I know when the client asks me though, I don't dread them anymore. And so what I wanted to say about that is if you can identify the things that you hate talking about, then put those things very clearly in your contract and you'll never have to worry about it again. Right. I kept thinking maybe they won't ask, or if they ask, maybe I'll just be able to like dazzle them. Like, what about the fireplace? They want answers to those questions.
Right.
So figure out the answer and put it in your contract and end your misery. Right.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
like every job was exhausting in that way.
Yeah. So how do you answer that? Is that like being more accurate with your estimates, or is that just providing a range and saying, hey, there's no hard and fast answer?
Yeah, no, I don't guess anymore. I say, I know you want me to tell you what it's going to cost to renovate your 3-story home right now in the first 20 minutes of meeting you, but that's not possible. And you're going to meet, this is what I say to them, you're going to meet lots of professionals who will come in here and give you a number. I'm willing to bet you $1 million the number is not accurate. It's because they don't know. So we don't do that. We actually will give you a firm written guaranteed quote at step 5. We can't give it to you at step 1. And clients go, I totally, completely understand that. And then they say, but still, can't you give me a guess? Right.
Yeah.
And I say, could be, I can give you a guess. It won't be right. How about, somewhere between $1 million and $5 million. And then they'll like, okay, whatever. Or somewhere between, 30,000 and 75,000, depending on, where you're working. But I just don't allow myself to be backed into that corner anymore. I'm not a contractor. I'm not a plumber. I'm not an electrician. I'm not a painter. I'm not a tiler. I'm not a fireplace installer. And so, I can tell what I can tell you is most of our projects are in the snack bracket of $2 to $3 million. Like, boom, I can say that.
Yep. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And they probably appreciate the candor. And of course, there's an opportunity for them later to make choices that it's like, okay, let's go a little bit lower budget on this item, right? That you can kind of adjust that as you go along. I love that. That makes perfect sense. So last question before we move on to Q&A is like, what are some of the ways that, you track a project through its process, or what are some of the ways that, interior designers that you work with are like tracking their projects?
So one of the things that's super helpful about having a process like the 15 steps is the clients know what step we're on, and the staff and myself, we always know what step we're on. So it's relatively easy to stay focused when all you have to worry about is step 7. You're not worrying about 8. You're not worrying about 6 because 6 is done. You're only worrying about 7. It allows us to really be clear and to focus and to stay on track. On top of that, we now have an operations manual. I got to say, it's at least 100 pages, maybe more, where every system is written down. And that's not only helpful for staff, right? But if I'm hiring someone new and they don't know what their job is, let me show you. Page 17, you're going to do the following tasks. And the operations manual is really written like the idiot's guide to project management. Not that anybody who works for me is an idiot, but I use that language more for me than for anybody else. I seem to have a bad memory, right? I seem to like think I'll just wing it because it's a little teeny project. and that never works. So following what, and I said it off the top, a kind of a rigid process allows me to be way more creative than I ever was. And I will also say I never, I used to have a problem blurring the line between friends and clients. When I didn't have a firm process, clients quickly became friends, and suddenly we're going for lunch and they're picking my brain. I'm like, do I bill for that? Do I not bill for that? It was crazy making, right? Today, I know I finish a project for a client. If we have a great time, if we like each other, if we feel like we're going to be friends, we're friends after the project. And I recently had a dinner party where I included 2 clients that I'd never included in a social setting before. And it was awesome. And we've done 4 projects together. We're currently in the middle of a huge project for them, but we've worked together enough that I know like this is friends and that's work. And they're so different.
And you like are conscientious about, okay, we're not going to have this kind of conversation in the social setting, and I'm going to respect your time and keep it on track if this is a business conversation, right? So you probably have to kind of be the ringleader and kind of guide those interactions.
Yeah. And it was hard for me to get there because I'm like a lot of you guys, I'm like such a people pleaser and I want clients to like me. And I almost became kind of a robot with no personality for about a decade where I'm like, I'm just here to work. I'm not your friend. I'm not doing any of that. And then I realized, okay, I can be a little fun sometimes. I don't have to be a robot, but I can't go out for lunch in the middle of the project with a client. That's just not going to happen. But after the project, if I think she's a lot of fun, about 3 years ago, right before COVID hit, we had, I have these clients that we've done a few projects for now. They invited my husband and I to come to Las Vegas to see Lady Gaga. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. And then like a year later, we did their cottage, and it's just, so we're friends and I work for them. It's okay.
I love that. It's totally okay when it's the right people, right? Which is that's why you want to be friends with them, is because they respect
why you need that beginning intake process to be exact, because you're looking for the ideal client. Like, right? I used to think I wanted all the clients because I just wanted to make I wanted to make money, and I wanted to be able to pay my staff. Oh my God, I had such a big staff for a while. It was like, just take all the jobs. And I realized, no. I want to create a strong position, and I only want to work with those clients who are a perfect fit. And having said that, I do know there's somebody watching right now who goes, oh, bully for you. I just started and I don't have that luxury. Believe me, I understand. There's no shame in taking every single job if you're just getting started. I definitely did that. But you don't want to do that for very long. Eventually, you want to niche and narrow down to your ideal lane. And then that's where you can really make an impact.
Love it. Well, on that note, we're going to hop into the comments. So I am going to peruse here for some questions. I've got our questions at the beginning here. Okay, so one question is, what can you accomplish in a 1-hour consultation?
Oh, we don't do a 1-hour consultation. We only do a 2-hour consultation all the time, no matter what. I used to have a 3-hour. I don't need it. So it's very formulaic. When we show up at the consultation, I actually have a consultation summary. I go room by room. I talk to the clients. I'm there to develop a scope of work. And I'm there to allow the client to dump her wish list on me or his wish list on me, right? That's my job. So it's really easy. We're standing in the foyer. I'm like, what do you love about the foyer? What do you hate about the foyer? And then as I'm walking through the house, all kinds of things come up. I hate purple. I love red. I like green. I hate brass. I only want brushed nickel. Like, as we're moving. And at first it's a little slow and kind of, because we're starting to get to know each other. But after the client tells you that they want, like, mid-century modern or English country, you know that by the fifth room, you got it. You know, you want paneled walls and antique mirror and, antique vintage furniture, you got it. Or the opposite, you want slab doors and you want sleek hidden reveals and you got all that. So you start going a little faster, room by room by room. I'm just dump everything on me, give it all to me. And at the end of that consultation, what I will have is a pretty detailed scope of work. And at that point, all the notes I have are just handwritten. I just handwrite them. If the client is going to move forward to a project, most often they'll allow me to keep those notes and type them up so that we then have our finishing schedule or our scope of work. But if the client was going to be a DIY person and do the work themselves, I literally hand them the notes and say, thank you so much. It was great to meet you. And I make sure that I include as much information as I can in terms of how to direct them to do the project on their own. Most of the consultation I go to are turn into projects, but because I do a lot of television from time to time, there's somebody who just wants to have me in their house. And so I do a little DIY consultation and then they try to feed me and it's super awkward.
Yeah, that is hilarious. I love the idea of assisting the DIY people rather than like getting frustrated about it, because you never know, they could be a source of referrals or they might come back later or something. So I like that you're obviously getting paid for your time. So it doesn't take too much for you to just go ahead and make that a really great experience, no matter, what they're planning. We got an interesting response to one of the 5 questions that you offered. And it says, I worry if referrals talk about their price from me with each other. Have you ever had an issue with that where like a client came to you because they were referred by somebody else that had worked with you and they're like, oh, I'm expecting this number because that's the number that they got. Have you had that issue?
Well, I totally understand that issue. And it's one of the reasons you can't afford to work for too little money, because then word spreads, hey, she's cheap, hire her. And that's not the messaging you want. I remember years ago, we thought, we should get some client testimonials now that I have happy clients. Let's get some testimonials. And one of my clients wrote, she's super expensive, but she's the best. And my whole staff was like, well, you can't use that. I'm like, why? Why? What's wrong with that? Like, there are people who want the best and they'll pay the best dollars for it. So we used it. Well, I let it ride. That's fine. It's true, right? So to your question, whatever you're charging, I would love to know what you're charging right now. That's probably going to make people shy, but we do get into the dollars of Business of Design. We look at your profit and loss statement once you complete the 15 steps and you decide you want to be a boss level member. We actually take your profit and loss statement and we help you grow based on that. So hopefully you won't be too shy to share your actual hourly fee. But whatever it is, I'm going to make up a number. Let's say currently you're $125 an hour, and then someone refers you, and now you want to raise your rate to $175. Are you allowed to do that? Yes. Businesses are allowed to adjust their rates. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to explain it. You can just give yourself a raise. And if the client is deterred by that, the new referral, if they're like, I'm not paying that, then that just means that's not your client. And when business is booming, as it has been for so many of us the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, I've had my best 2 years in the last 2 years, which is crazy because I've had some good years. I was there in 2008 and I had all these steps and I thought, wow, I'll never make more than that, but I did. So it's been good. Now is a really good time to raise your rates because everybody's raised their rates. Freight is up, duty is up, shipping is up. Like, I just spent $4,000 to upgrade from white light switches to bronze colored light switch for a project. Like, it used to be like $400. Now it's $4,000. So it's a really good time to give yourself a raise.
Love it. So if somebody's using the 15-step process, how do they track where a client is in that process? Like, are you using, how are you doing that? Is that in a
We
doc
know
or?
where it is because every step has to be finished before the next one begins.
Mhm.
So we don't do any procurement until we finish the presentation and the client's given us a deposit for everything we're going to order, or full payment for everything we're going to order, whatever the case may be. And then step 6 begins, and then we can procure all the items. And then step 7, we're going to build the installation calendar, and but we can't do any of that until we've ordered all the things and we know when things are going to arrive. Because I can
Right.
build this installation calendar and say, okay, we're going to do your bathroom and we're going to be done in 3 months. But oh, wow, my Kohler fixtures aren't arriving for 6 months. Well, guess what? I can't have the bathroom in 3 months if I don't have my fixtures. And so at that point, it's my job to tell the clients, okay, the longest lead time is for the bidet that you wanted, the special, Toto toilet or whatever. It's going to be 9 months for the toilet. So we're going to build your whole entire installation calendar around the timing of that toilet, because that's the longest lead time. And so I can't tell the clients when their project is going to be done until step 7. I just can't.
Got it.
I can make up anything I want. Now, there are times where we've had clients who are like moving from Washington, D.C. to Toronto, and they have to move into a condo in 4 weeks. Great. No problem. We can do that, but we're not ordering anything that isn't on the floor right now, ready to go, right? It's a totally different job. But most clients are willing to wait for the precious things that they've been dreaming about, buying. So when you tell them it's going to be 9 months, yeah, they're a little disappointed, but it's so much better than what I used to do, which is like, well, they say it's going to be 9 months, but maybe it'll be sooner. So we'll start a little sooner, and then just disappoint, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. One comment is asking about, how they get a lot of emails and questions from the client, and they realize that when that happens, it's because they haven't done a good enough job of educating the client. And when they do, then they really don't field that many questions. So I think we touched on this a little bit, but how do you kind of educate your clients? You're giving them like an actual write-up of the 15 steps and what that looks like, or how are you clarifying the process to them?
I'm so happy we're talking about this. So first of all, the very first page of my contract is the 15 steps, and almost invariable, every time I read that to a client, they go, oh my God, I love this. They've worked with another designer. They always say the same thing. She was great, but we just never knew when this was going to happen or that was happening. Never seemed like we were going to get done. So they're like, I love this. So that's the first thing. Second thing, we're very strict around the process of informing clients where the project is at. And on a weekly basis, if not more, but minimum weekly basis, there's a project update. Hey, we started step 7 this week. This is where we're at, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes the clients will say, okay, when are we going to do when's the big reveal? Oh, right. That's not until step 11. I forgot. Okay. Where's step 7? Like they'll kind of talk themselves into the number. It's sort of fascinating to watch. And managing clients is my number one job. In fact, we kind of have a joke that's not a joke, which is if a client ever phones me, someone's getting fired, because I say it's not the client's job to ask us what's happening. It's our job to tell them what's happening. So we tell them, and we tell them again, almost to the point where it's obnoxious. Just reminding you that we're installing the bracing on the fireplace on Tuesday. I know you told me, great, just it's a discipline. Developing the discipline to stay on top of that took a lot for me, because I tend to be undisciplined. I like a little chaotic magic, but clients don't. Clients really like discipline.
Right. I feel you on the chaotic magic. Yeah, I mean, we want to put that in as creatives, but you kind of got to hide that part of it, right?
Well, it's okay to have it when you're talking about the creative part. But once you're at the point where you have tradespeople in a client's house, this is no longer creative. This is now really intensive work, and you have a huge responsibility and liability, and there's no messing around. Right. So I just had to get clear that 80% of the business, that's everything. 20% easy, super fun, drinking coffee, looking at Pinterest, stealing all of your good ideas. I've never said I'm the best interior designer there is in terms of being creative or doing beautiful rooms. I think what I do is beautiful, but I get so many good ideas from other peers who I think are much more creative than me. I have to push myself really hard sometimes to be a little braver and more bold and take a chance, you know.
Right. But knowing where you excel and where you have to push, I love that.
Yeah.
So we did get a few related questions to, wanting clients that are at a different financial level than where you're at. Maybe if you come from a poor background, or you're dealing with clients who are always wanting, cheaper items, and you're trying to sway them towards nicer things. Like, of course, you did have the plethora of leads issues, but we've definitely got people on the call that don't have that, and they're really wanting to kind of attract more higher end clientele. That's not exactly the topic of this, but I think it's worth, checking in with you to see kind of how do you recommend designers start to call in those kinds of clients?
I completely understand this one. You mentioned having a poor background. So I wouldn't say I grew up poor, but we grew up at the lower end of the middle class. My mom and dad are both from Arkansas. They both grew up in houses that didn't have running water. And so they moved to California and started a life there. My dad delivered bread for Weber's Bread. And when I told my parents I was going to go to design school, my mom literally said, "They'll pay you for that." So trust me when I tell you, I didn't grow up around antiques and fine art, and I had a lot of confidence problems to overcome. Getting a streamlined process is what gives you confidence. So that's number one. Number two, we hear this from thousands of designers. "I want luxury clients." And I say, "Tell me what your hourly fee is." And they say it's $110 or whatever. And I say, "You're not getting luxury clients." Luxury clients are looking for a luxury price tag, because the luxury price tag signals to them it's a luxury product. And let me give you an example. I have this really close friend in Texas who has so much money. I was going to say more money than God, but I don't know how much that is. She has a lot of money, but she's frugal. She's so frugal. And I grew up with nothing, and now I have money. I've worked very, very hard. I'm not frugal. Like, I'll spend money. So if we're going to go away on a holiday, she will search for a hotel and she will organize it. You know how you can sort from lowest to highest price? Mm-hmm. She'll sort from the lowest price to the highest price. I sort from the highest price to the lowest price, because I know I'm going to stay in the best hotel in town. I'm only going to be there a week. I'm not staying in a crappy hotel. And so we always joke, like, where we start in the search is at the opposite end. Well, I'm looking for clients who search high end down, not low end up. You never will convert clients who sort low end up to be a high end client. It's never going to happen. My girlfriend has more money than God. She will not spend it. She will not spend it freely. It's never going to change. And you can never, ever, ever make real money working for clients who don't want to spend money on projects. Never. So number one thing I would do is raise your hourly rate, raise your price. So your brand, your price is your brand. I say this all the time. People say, "Oh, we do high-end luxury clients." I look at the website, I see they do online web, they do online design, they do fancy consultations, they do color consultations only. I'm like, no, you're not luxury, because luxury clients aren't looking for that. They're looking for a top to bottom, the whole house, right? Mm-hmm. So your number one brand identifier is your hourly rate. I'm $375 an hour. My seniors are $275 an hour. So if you call my office, you can see my rates are online. If you call the office, you already know that we're at a different snack bracket than another designer who's posted that they're $100 an hour. There's nothing wrong with $100 an hour if you want to serve clients who spend less money. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not like one's better than the other. But if you want those luxury projects so that you have fun, in your job, you've got to raise your rate. You've got to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And some of that is like, how much work do you want to be doing that's on client projects, right? Because when you're not charging enough, then you've got to actually be taking on more projects and you don't have much time for marketing, right?
Yeah. And we've showed people the math, like $125 an hour doing 7 clients, or $275 an hour doing 3 clients, and how much more money you make doing 3 clients a year versus 7 clients a year. And then you have time left over for marketing, for travel, for, whatever. And then your referrals come from that different bracket, right? The referrals and the leads I get now are clients who are like, oh, I know you built a house for them, in Mulmer. We bought property. We want to build a house. Will you come and see the property? Yeah. Because I already know you're my client, right?
Totally. One question is asking, what is the typical percentage you add for your trades or contractors like painters or cabinet builders?
Yeah, that's a really hard question to answer because it's part of what's factored into our trade partner agreement, which is the contract I was talking about at the very beginning. But I can tell you in general, we're making 30% on everything. That's kind of a gross estimate. That's not exactly how it works, but that's sort of a gross estimate.
Okay, got it. And then we're getting some questions about how you do the contracts. Like one question is, do you walk the client through the contract and actually like talk through it in person rather than just give it to them? Are you using like an online contract signer like, HelloSign or Dubsado or something? Or are you doing paper? What does that look like when you're actually handing over the contract?
So one of the things I fought with my business coach about for a couple of years, and I paid her a lot of money, so it's my bad for fighting with her. I should have just surrendered. She suggested that I read my contract line by line to the clients. And I thought she was kind of joking. I thought she was sort of saying, you got to hit the main points. And after a couple of years, she just said, when are you going to read it line by line? I'm like, that is so stupid. I'm not going to read it line by line. She's like, read it line by line. Well, a miracle happened when I read it line by line. I became the expert I always wanted to be, and I had confidence because I learned to say all the things without being uncomfortable. I learned to be that business owner that was on paper. I refer to my contract as paper courage. It gave me paper courage. So number one, read the contract line by line. Pay attention. If every consultation a client asks you a question and it's not answered in your contract, get the answer in your contract. I wanted to get to the point where I would read the contract line by line, and then I say to the clients, do you have any questions? And they'd say, no, let's get started. That's what I'm looking for. When they would say, well, how does it work with this? And how does it work with that? I'm like, okay, I haven't been clear in my contract about how that's going to work. So you want a contract, I believe, and experience has shown me, I want a contract that a third grader could read and understand, because I don't want there to be anything that's not clear. Everybody understands the rules and everybody then can follow the rules. And I know what most designers do. Most designers go, well, like, okay, this is amazing. I'm going to leave you the contract. You can talk it over with your husband and call me, if you want to work together. I can tell you that you will get 60% more clients if you read the contract and get a yes before you leave the consultation. 60%. We've done the math with thousands of other designers. It's a huge game changer. I want to know before I leave that house, is this a project we're going to work together on? Now, most of the time, I get a yes. And that's great. Sometimes the client will say, I need to review this with my partner. I got to discuss it with my husband. I got to discuss it with my wife, whatever. So why is it important that I read the contract to that person anyway? It's important because when they go to relay information about how it's going to work to their partner, they need to be the expert. And you don't go through it with them and answer their questions, and then their partner goes, what, that retainer? I don't understand a retainer. That's ridiculous. I'm not paying a retainer. And they go, well, I don't know. She said we need a retainer. You leave that person without the information that they need. So you go through the contract line by line, and then they're prepared to give that information to their partner.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. If they're going to be your salesperson, you got to train them up.
Right. And you also, if that's going to be the case, great. We're going to phone you on Thursday afternoon. I'm going to have the office will phone you Thursday afternoon. I soon is the person who does it for us. She'll phone you on Thursday afternoon to find out if we're moving forward with the project. Like, I'm closing the loop. I'm not looking back. They need to make a decision. Now, the client might say, oh, my husband, he works late on Thursdays. I really won't get to talk to him to the weekend. Great. We're going to call you on Tuesday. And then they'll say, okay. But then everybody knows there's an end here to when this contract needs to be signed.
Okay, cool. We're getting some questions also on pricing. So like, do you charge upfront for your consultations? Do you charge upfront for your projects? How do you manage any pushback if you do charge upfront? give us some of your charging, insights.
I definitely 100% charge for the consultation upfront. And the minute the consultation is booked, we take the money. It's crazy how many years it took me to accept that that's how businesses run. When I started talking about business of design in 2004, I'm going to say that 80% of interior design professionals went to the consultation for free. That is so shocking today because that is not the case. Like my first 5 years of preaching business of design was stop going to the consultation for free. It's a waste of everybody's time. You won't get the job. You won't be respected. This is not how businesses run. They don't come. And then I always joke, I really shouldn't, but I do kind of joke, like, would a hooker do that? A hooker doesn't come for 2 hours, let you try it out, and then pay you the next time. No, you get paid up front. That's how it works. So the other thing is getting paid up front, man, that when I would show up to the house, they were excited and they were ready for me. They'd already invested in my company. And because the consultation is step 1, we were already on step 2 by the time I did the consultation, where meet and greets, you're just like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm trying to get a sense of whether or not I want to do this. And then you start later. When the client meets me, we're at step 2. If they sign the contract before I leave, we're at step 3. Like, wow, there's only 15. We've made so much progress, right? It totally makes sense. Then if I'm doing a project, for many, many years, I only taught hourly fee projects, and people said, oh, you hate flat fees. Oh, no, I don't hate flat fees. I just don't want you to start with a flat fee because you're going to lose your mind. You're not going to ever make any money unless you figure out how much of your time resource you're putting into projects. Once you figure out how much of your time resource you need to sell, then you can make money with flat fees. So today we do teach both hourly and flat fee, but for the majority of designers, please, 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 I'm begging you, start with hourly. Let's get that flattened out, and then you can switch to a flat fee, no problem. But it takes a lot of courage, right? If I go to a flat fee, I'm saying to the client, okay, the flat fee for the first 5 steps is $45,000 or $65,000. It's hard to say that at first, right? Today, I know I can say it. If we're building a whole house top to bottom, I'll say the flat fee for phase 2, which are steps 3 to 5, the flat fee for phase 2 is $65,000. And they go, okay, that's great, because we're doing a big project together. And then there's a different flat fee for the back of the project.
Yeah. And you've got to really know your hours in order to do that.
Right. But what most of us do is like go, okay, the flat fee is, okay, I know I should be charging, $40,000, but that seems really fine. I really want this job and it's in a great neighborhood, and maybe she's going to give me a referral. So I should say, I'll say $25,000 or 25. That still seems high. I'll say 19. Let's do 19. Oh, okay. And then when it finally comes out of your mouth, 15 comes out of your mouth, right? That was me. I was so afraid to lose a job that I'm like, no, I need 50. But 15 came out of my mouth, and then I lied to myself. Don't worry, I'll make it up next time. A decade went by, and I lost money year after year after year. Don't do that. You don't have to do that.
Okay, love it. So when you're managing a project, how many times do you visit the site? And do you charge travel time? Do you charge hourly for that visit? How does that work?
It's so fun. These are all the things we teach at Business of Design in a very specific order. So how many times I visit the site depends on what the project looks like. But I can tell you this, between step 1 and step 5, I visit the house inclusive, 1 to 5 inclusive, 3 times, only 3 times. That's it. After that, when the project management kicks in, then it's likely, if it's a big project, we're at least doing a weekly site visit. If it's a smaller project, it might be less than that. It also depends on which of my trades are on site. So if it's a trade I don't know very well, or we're at a complicated part of the process, I might have to be on site a couple of times. If it's, the painter is going to be painting the house top to bottom. I've had the same painter since 1991. I don't have to babysit him. So I tell the clients, we're happy to come check on him. You can pay us to do that, or we're going to leave him alone for 3 weeks. And when he's done, it's going to be perfect. And 100% of my clients love my painter. And they go, great. You don't have to come see that. Don't come while he's here, because that saves us money. So it is a little bit, it is a little bit of managing where you are in the process. But one thing I do want to say, the person who needs to determine how many times you are on site is not the client, it's you. You're the person who knows when it's important for you to be on site. So that's your job to determine. And that's something that's in my contract. We make the call about how often we need to be on site because I'm liable for this job, whether I want to be or not. Whether the client is paying the trades directly or not, I'm still responsible and I'm still liable. In the event there's a lawsuit, I'm still getting sued.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. Well, we have kind of run to the end of our time here. We do have more questions, so I think that just means we're going to have to get you back in a few months or something. So Kimberly has a coupon code for us. So if you want to try Business of Design, you can save $50 off your first month with the promo code DesignFiles, and that expires October 28th. Anything you want to just say, just to describe Business of Design, how that works?
Well, Business of Design is really my baby. I am the advocate in chief at Business of Design because my job is to advocate for all of you. But by doing so, I keep myself on the straight and narrow in terms of projects, and I remember not to take shortcuts. We used to, when I first started, I would fly all over North America to just talk to different groups like this. And all of the money for that was kind of coming out of my pocket, but it felt so good to talk about it. Like I was just doing it as a hobby, and it got very expensive. So we decided to launch Business of Design online in 2004. And we now have hundreds of video courses. It's no theory. It's all just practical. Do it like this. It's dirt cheap, which is the opposite of what I told you. If you want your brand to get luxury clients, you got to raise your rates. But it's always been my mission to transform the lives of interior design professionals one designer at a time. So it will be the very best. I can say this 100%. It's the best investment you will ever make in your business, bar none. And if you don't believe me, go on our website. We have hundreds of testimonials and thousands of testimonials online. So we'd love to have you join us.
Yes, thank you. We've gotten some good comments here from some of your members. So,
my members, that's so cool.
Yeah, hi, we got a lot of great comments saying we thank you for all your experience, and we love your candor, and lots of fun comments in here. So
that's so sweet.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Kimberly, and thank you to everybody for joining us today.
Thanks, Dayana.
Dayana, you got it. You got it.
Such a cool name.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.